Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we simplify the college planning process for our families going through planning for college. And we know how confusing and frustrating this can be. I'm here today with Bobby Hood. My name's Kristin Clark, and today we're talking about a really cool new tool called NotebookLM. And Bobby, I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to put up a banner so people know what we're talking about because we got excited about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this has just been exploding all over social media. I just heard a podcast about this a couple of days ago on the podcast Hard Fork, which talks about like new things in technology. This is Google's new experimental AI product. And I know everybody's already kind of sick of hearing about AI, but this is one that is going to be an actual game changer for a very small area, but an area that affects our families' lives, our students, which is this product is called NotebookLM, just notebook, capital L, capital M. And it is currently free, and it just allows you to create notebooks where you load in a bunch of source material, like PDF files. Like if you had a textbook for a class, you could load that in there. You can link in YouTube videos. You can link in audio files. You can link in your own writing, your own handwritten notes. And what it does is it takes all this source material and combines it all together. And then you can ask questions about it and it will answer them. But also it has a feature where it can generate a 5 to 15 minute long podcast that explains and dives into the material and explains it to you. And so I'm seeing all over social media students who are already saying that this is changing their lives for how they study for college classes. You take your textbook, which if you've got it in PDF format, you take the outline of notes that you've written, you take recordings of, like you set your phone down and record the professor talking in class, you load all that in, and then you just click a button and it makes a podcast that explains the material, like fills in the gaps from your notes with the other things from the lecture. And it makes a podcast that explains everything to you that you can listen to while you're at the gym or going for a walk, going for a run or whatever, right? Students are just saying this is going to change everything for them.
Yeah. And Bobby, I think about this. I'm a terrible note taker.
I am too.
For me to be able to, record something and then have them kind of just play it back with the key pieces, I think. And I've always said this, a lot of times you'll hear me say, Bobby, you say it because you're going to say it differently than I am, right? So that now you're hearing it two different ways.
Right.
And we all know people are built differently. So for them to be able to hear it in a couple different ways, I think is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I just wanted to see what this thing looks like, right? And so all you do is, you just go to, the website is just notebooklm.google.com, right? And so I'm just going to show you what I did is just to experiment with it. You remember in a couple of years ago, we went through all of my Clifton strengths, right?
Right.
You showed me how to take the test. And this is what you do with students all the time. But it generates, when you take the Clifton strengths test, right? It generates a summary report that gives you your top strengths, right? Your themes report, your signature themes, but it also gives you these more detailed reports. And so I loaded in those 4 reports: the signature theme report, the strengths 34 report that has all of your strengths, the strengths inside guide, the theme sequence report, all of those things. I just simply loaded them in, and then I clicked generate overview, which is the generate this audio. And you can see here on the top right, there's just a button and it says Clifton Strengths is the name of this notebook that I made. And so just listen to how this thing starts. It's like, these are AI people discussing what I fed in there, right?
Well, yeah. And I want people to really listen to this because it really sounds like a podcast. It's really pretty.
It really does. So let's just listen now. It begins, and then let's go kind of to the middle of it. I have to click the button over here.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to a deep dive into your unique strengths. We're going to be cracking open those reports you shared, the signature theme report, the strength 34 report, and that theme sequence report. And we're going to really unearth what makes you tick.
I'm going to say I took a sneak peek at these reports, and wow, there's some seriously cool stuff in there.
It's like having this personalized treasure map, right?
It sounds a little like us, doesn't it?
Well, it does kind of sound a little bit like us.
That's funny. But so let's go to where they actually start diving into it because they do a little intro there.
I mean, when I first saw it, input.
Now, I know what you might be thinking, like, oh, input, that's just about loving to learn. But this report, it goes deeper, way deeper. It suggests your input, it's more nuanced, more complex. Like, you don't just collect information, right? You have this insatiable need to understand the why behind everything. You're driven to connect those dots, to see the patterns, the underlying principles.
That's a really sharp observation. It's like you're hardwired differently,
Yeah.
not just to gain knowledge, but to really make it a part of you, to understand the world around you through it.
Exactly. And get this, the report even mentions that this specific aspect of your input, this drive to understand the why, it's statistically rare. It's like having a built-in radar for those deeper layers of understanding that honestly a lot of people miss.
It's
So you can see what they're doing. Like they're not just they're not reading the report to you, right?
Right.
They're picking out things that seem important. They're explaining it in a way that is understandable. I can definitely see that, like a student who worked with you, they might not want to read through that whole report, but they'd listen to this about themselves, right? I mean, how ridiculous is that? But
I'm amazed at how conversational they are. And
right.
and it makes sense. It's not like gobbledygook like you could expect. And from what I'm hearing and what I know of the input strength, yes, they're definitely reading some of the reports.
Yep. Right.
But they're adding a tad bit of commentary. So it's kind of
Exactly.
interesting. Yeah.
Right. And now I haven't even listened through this whole thing. I did one yesterday where I loaded in like a long time ago. It's at work, one of the people I worked with, his wife was an astrologer. And so when I was like 25 or 28, so this astrologer recorded this very long horoscope about how my life was going to go. And most of it was not true, but some of it was, how those things go. But I loaded that thing in here yesterday and listened to this analysis. And it, of course, repeated back a lot of the things she said, but it added in a bunch of stuff that wasn't in there that was correct about like explaining what all this stuff meant. Whereas like, oh, when it says, the moon is corner to whoever, whatever, they're like, that means your third house is this. I mean, just explaining a bunch of stuff that wasn't even in there, which is very interesting. And I don't know, I just thought it was very funny because I was like, oh, what's it going to do with this very silly horoscope thing, right?
I'm curious, Bobby, because I've been looking at a lot of TikTok videos about palm reading. For some reason, they start coming up in my feed.
Right.
I wonder if you take a picture of your palm, if they'd be able to do that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That's what so they I listened to an interview with the person who is the lead creator of this. And he said one of the things they did with the podcast thing is that they had to learn how to train the voices basically to say words like and make, and have certain pauses and emphasis and stuff, because that's why it doesn't sound that much like AI anymore. It sounds absolutely like real people, because you will hear them say and get surprised and things like that. And also, so one of the this is all brand new, but they said that by the end of the year, so in the next 2 months, the feature is going to change from not just a podcast, but an actual conversation where you can talk to, and then you can ask questions and redirect them on the fly to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But
what's really interesting about this, Bobby, is even on AI, I was in a podcast recently, and they were talking about even with AI having a conversation with it so it can learn you better.
Right.
And I've noticed, like, I'll go in and I'll type in, wow, you did that really fast. And they're like, wow, thank you.
Right.
And it's so funny, though, that it's learning this stuff and a little bit scary, I got to tell you.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And and so like that was the other thing is, just like my nephew was texting me about this and I was saying, look, he works on repairing machines in a factory and he was like, oh, I can take the technical manual for the new machine we just got and have it make a podcast that explains to me, all the features of it, right? Like there are so many different uses for this. And absolutely, like this is a big conversation in the world about AI right now. It's like, what are the risks of all this, right? And there are a lot of risks with AI that, they need to be very, very careful about. This particular one, that's like they asked in that interview with the person who was the director of this. They said, okay, what if I wanted to make load in Hitler's Mein Kampf and write and do a podcast about how great it was. And he's like, oh, well, no, I mean, it'll make a podcast about it. But they did. And then they're like, and it's like, okay, today we are going to academically analyze the really terrible book that, did all these awful things by this awful person, right? Like it knows that too. Like it's not going to do that, but like it does have safeties built in, like that it's not necessarily going to like summarize how to build bombs or things like that. But other than that, at least for now, this is just going to be a neat tool for students. And since, this is going to be helpful for a very small group of people like writers, researchers, but students, absolutely. I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I love it. And you just got this in front of me. So
Right.
my head's spinning a little bit, as I'm sure
Mhm.
people listening, their heads are spinning as to what you can all do with it. And also to me, it is that, AI for evil.
Right.
How can this get screwed up by people, misusing it? Part of it, Bobby, you did another one where it summarized some of our podcasts on the hard things are not that hard.
Yeah.
And that makes me curious too, where now it's taking our information, right? What we talk
Mhm.
about,
Yes.
and it's putting it in a podcast, which I can see where some creators are going to go, wait, right? This is how we think and feel and how we talk. And
Okay. Absolutely. Now, this is really, really important. Yeah, this can be a way that creators can steal other creators'
Mhm.
ideas, very much, right? And so, yeah, just as I put in links to our YouTube videos, right? It can only do that on publicly available YouTube videos, but you could download them, your own private ones, and put them in. But it did, like, it generated a summary. Now it credited us, right? And I mean, you can, and if we look at that for a second, yeah, it's just like, I think it was like
He
somewhere in
says
here.
it's all based on 13 grammar rules. That's it, 13. Instead of memorizing a zillion things, you've got a clear target. You can totally master these rules.
It's such a good example of how if you just focus on the key ideas, it doesn't have to be so overwhelming.
Exactly. It's like having a treasure map instead of just wandering around lost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And speaking of treasures, Bobby's extra stuff rule is pure gold.
right. So it's summarizing those things that we talked about, right? And so yeah, someone could take this, load in a bunch of someone's YouTube or TikTok videos or whatever, and then regenerate this this podcast. Now they did say, and then they could upload that. And yeah, so it is interesting that this is definitely a way to take someone's material and repackage it. Currently, it's free, right? I do think we're going to see some of that, and it is interesting. I mean, like in the world of TikTok, like I've started noticing that is once you find a creator whose material you like, you then start getting served 25 copies of the same material by other people that are trying to cash in on it, where they just took that person's video and then put a song behind it or whatever, right? And you're like, no, I just wanted to hear this person talk about this, esoteric topic. And you're like, oh, now I'm seeing the same video, but with an overlay on top of it, right? So
Right.
that is part of this. Is just another one of those tools that people could use that for intellectual property theft, for sure, right? That's a big issue. But yeah, I mean, I'll keep playing with this, and I'll find some other examples, and maybe we can come up with something that something else to dive into it over the next couple of months and look at it some more. But I think anybody who's got students, they ought to go look at this right now and see if they can load in some of this stuff from their classes and see what happens.
So I'm curious, is it just video, Bobby, or can you I've got a book that because you put the reports from Clifton Strengths.
Yeah, it's basically PDFs and any video source that has a text summary. It has to have. Right now, it's not listening to the actual audio; it's reading a text summary. Right.
Well, I'm curious because I'm writing my book right now about helping parents have career conversations with their kids. And it makes me kind of curious what it might tell me back.
Oh, no, and absolutely right. No, that's what I mean. The person who created this, the reason he created it is he's this nerdy writer who's a journalist and a writer of books about technological stuff. And he had kept on his computer notes about ideas and quotations he had heard and stories he had read. And he had, I think it was 500,000 words worth of just stuff between stuff he had written and articles he had saved and all this stuff. And they created this literally to see what happens. And he loads all that stuff in, right? And it can just weave it all together and you can ask questions about it all kinds of
Wow.
stuff. So it can take an enormous amount of, like, I think the free version here, I mean, you can put 50 things into it. But yeah, it's really, yeah. So it's basically PDF files, text files, markdown. Oh, and audio. It can listen to audio. So basically, it's words or audio is the only thing. It can't look at pictures yet.
Okay. And what does the LM stand for? Do you know?
I think a language model
Oh,
is
okay.
because all these chat AI is a large language model, and so I guess LM. So those are LLMs, and this is, instead of being a large language model, this is just a language model for only notebooks, and a notebook is just a bunch of sources.
Well, so I'm curious, since you loaded in our videos, is it always the same voices, or did they use?
It's always the same voices.
Okay. I didn't know if they used a, kind of like a reflection.
And well, and I wonder about that because they did say they're already talking about, like, can we do this in other languages and all that? And then I suspect when this thing becomes mature and they start charging money for it, or if they do, right, that they would, I hope, have a few different, sounding voices, right? Because I mean, that is definitely just the very generic, white person voice they've got going on there.
Right.
So, I think you'd like to be able to have some people with different kinds of accents and things like that, for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is great stuff. So something crazy to think about for the next week, and then we'll just keep going.
All right.